Liam, an 8-year-old boy with a sharp sense of right and wrong, always trusted his instincts. But when his father prepares to marry Vanessa, a woman hiding dark secrets, Liam knows he has to act. On what should have been the happiest day of his father's life, he steps forward and exposes a shocking truth that stuns everyone. His bold move stops the wedding in its tracks, but the fallout is far worse than he imagined. Who is the real mastermind behind Vanessa's plan? How deep does the deception go? And what happens when the people he's trying to expose refuse to let him walk away? Stay tuned for this gripping tale of bravery, deception, and the fight for truth. Before we dive in, let us know where you're watching from, and if you love stories of courage, don't forget to hit that subscribe button. Liam Carter had always known that his father, Nathan, loved him more than anything in the world. Since his mother passed away 2 years ago, their bond had only deepened. It was just the two of them, a small but unbreakable family. Nathan was the kind of father who made time, who listened, who never let Liam feel alone in his grief. Their house might have felt emptier without his mother's laughter echoing in the halls, but Nathan did everything he could to fill it with warmth, even when his own heart was breaking. It had been that way until Vanessa came into their lives. Nathan had met her at a charity event, a place he had only attended because his friends insisted he needed to put himself out there again. Liam had stayed home that night, watching movies and waiting for his dad to return. He had expected Nathan to come back tired, maybe a little irritated from all the forced socializing. Instead, he had returned with something different in his eyes. Hope. Liam had seen it the moment his father stepped through the door. The way his lips curled into a smile, the way he loosened his tie and exhaled like someone carrying something lighter than before. And then, after a few weeks, Nathan had introduced Vanessa. She was beautiful, with striking green eyes and long, dark hair that shimmered under the light. She carried herself with grace, and her voice had a certain warmth that made people want to trust her. At first, Liam had wanted to trust her, too. His father deserved happiness, and if Vanessa made him happy, then maybe she was someone worth knowing. The first few months had gone well. Vanessa showered Liam with kindness whenever Nathan was around. She brought him small gifts, asked about his interests, and smiled at him like she truly cared. Liam had tried to open up to her, tried to believe that maybe this was the person who could help his father move forward without erasing the past. But then, things began to change. It was subtle at first, small moments that Nathan never witnessed. Vanessa would sigh when Liam entered the room, her warm smile fading the second Nathan's back was turned. She would take credit for things she hadn't done, telling Nathan how much effort she had put into making dinner when Liam had clearly watched her order takeout. When Nathan wasn't home, she barely spoke to him at all. The worst part wasn't her silence, it was the way she looked at him. Like he was in the way. Liam wasn't the kind of kid to complain. He wasn't the type to throw tantrums or act out, but he felt something deep in his gut that he couldn't ignore. It wasn't just about her coldness. It was something worse. Something unsettling. He told himself he was imagining it, that maybe she was just struggling to adjust to their small family. But no matter how hard he tried to believe that, a part of him knew the truth. Vanessa didn't like him. And no matter how hard she pretended, she never would. Still, Nathan was happy. Liam hadn't seen his father smile like this in years. He took Vanessa on weekend trips, brought her flowers, talked about the future with a kind of excitement that made Liam hesitate. He didn't want to ruin that for his dad. He didn't want to be the reason Nathan lost something again. So, he said nothing. But one evening, everything changed. It had been an ordinary night. Nathan had left for a work event, and Vanessa had made it clear she wanted nothing to do with Liam while he was gone. He sat in his room, reading, trying to stay out of her way. But then, as he walked down the hall to grab a glass of water, he heard her voice. It wasn't her usual fake kindness. It wasn't the polite tone she used around Nathan. It was sharp, cold, and it sent a chill down his spine. "I told you, Mark, everything is going according to plan," Vanessa whispered. Liam froze in place, his small fingers tightening around the banister. "Plan? No, he doesn't suspect a thing. He trusts me completely." A pause. "Don't worry. Once the wedding is done, the insurance policy will be in place. It won't be long after that." Liam's stomach turned. Insurance policy. Wedding. Won't be long after that. He wasn't sure how long he stood there, his heart pounding so loudly he could barely hear. Something inside him told him to run, to get away before she realized he was listening. But his feet wouldn't move. His mind was racing too fast, trying to make sense of the words she had just spoken. She was planning something. Something bad. For the first time, his fears weren't just about her disliking him. This was something else entirely. Vanessa laughed, a sound so unlike the warm, inviting one she used in front of Nathan that it made his skin crawl. Relax. He won't even see it coming. Liam felt like he couldn't breathe. He backed away, his hands shaking as he turned and hurried toward his room. He barely noticed the water glass slipping from his grasp, shattering against the hardwood floor. The noise was loud, too loud. For a moment, there was silence. Then, Vanessa's voice snapped like a whip. Liam. He ran. His legs moved before his mind could catch up, his heart hammering against his ribs. He made it to his room just in time, slamming the door shut and locking it. His breath came in sharp, uneven gasps as he pressed his back against the wood. He could hear her approaching. Her footsteps were steady, slow. When she knocked, it wasn't frantic or worried. It was deliberate. Liam, she called softly, but there was no kindness in her voice. Did you break something? He didn't answer. The handle jiggled once. Then, after a few seconds of silence, she walked away. Liam sank to the floor, his hands gripping his knees as he tried to calm himself. His mind kept replaying her words. The plan. The insurance. The certainty in her voice when she said Nathan wouldn't see it coming. This wasn't just about a wedding. It was about his father's life. And if Liam didn't do something soon, he might lose the only parent he had left. Liam barely slept that night. Every time he closed his eyes, Vanessa's voice echoed in his head, each word laced with a chilling certainty. He won't even see it coming. He lay in bed, his mind racing through possibilities. Was he overreacting? Could it have been a misunderstanding? He wanted so badly to believe that he had heard wrong, that Vanessa wasn't as dangerous as she seemed. But deep down, he knew the truth. The conversation wasn't normal. People didn't talk about insurance policies and perfect plans unless they were hiding something. And now, he knew she was hiding something very dangerous. By morning, Liam had made up his mind. He had to tell his father. Nathan always listened to him, even when things were difficult. He just had to find the right way to say it, to explain what he had heard without sounding paranoid. If he was careful, if he chose his words wisely, Nathan would believe him. But before he got the chance, Vanessa struck first. At breakfast, she was already seated at the table, sipping a cup of tea as if nothing had happened. Her green eyes flicked to him the moment he walked in, and Liam felt an invisible force settle over the room. A quiet warning. He swallowed hard and pulled out a chair, glancing toward the kitchen. His father was still getting ready upstairs. Morning, Liam, Vanessa said smoothly, her voice sickeningly sweet. I heard something break last night. Are you all right? Liam hesitated. Did she know he had been listening? Was this her way of testing him? He forced himself to nod. Yeah. I dropped a glass. She smiled, setting her cup down. Accidents happen. The way she said it made his skin crawl. Before he could respond, Nathan walked into the kitchen, adjusting his tie. He looked relaxed, happy, oblivious to the tension crackling beneath the surface. Morning, buddy, he said, ruffling Liam's hair before pressing a kiss to Vanessa's cheek. How's my favorite duo today? Vanessa laughed softly, her hand resting against Nathan's chest. Wonderful, as always. Liam wanted to scream. He gripped his fork so tightly his knuckles turned white. How could she pretend like this? How could she sit there, smiling, knowing what she had planned? His heart pounded as he forced himself to speak. Dad, I need to talk to you. It's important. Nathan glanced at him, slightly distracted. Sure, what's up? Alone, Liam clarified, throwing a quick glance at Vanessa. She didn't react. If anything, she looked amused. Nathan sighed. Liam, I'm running late for work. Can't it wait until later? Liam's stomach twisted. He had to say something, now. He shook his head. No, Dad. It's serious. Nathan frowned at his tone, finally giving his full attention. Okay. What's going on? Liam took a deep breath. It's about Vanessa. Out of the corner of his eye, he saw her still completely. But when she spoke, her voice was light, unconcerned. Oh? What about me? Liam ignored her, keeping his gaze locked on his father. I heard her talking on the phone last night. With some guy named Mark. She was talking about an insurance policy and a plan. She said you wouldn't see it coming. Nathan blinked, clearly thrown off. What? Liam's pulse raced. I'm telling the truth. She's planning something bad, Dad. You have to believe me. For the first time, Vanessa showed real emotion. Her lips parted slightly, as if surprised that Liam had actually gone through with it. But instead of anger, her expression shifted into something else, pity. Oh, sweetheart, she murmured. You must have misunderstood. Liam's hands clenched into fists. I didn't. Nathan ran a hand through his hair, clearly torn. Hold on. This is a lot to take in. I know, Liam pressed. But I love your dad, Vanessa interrupted softly, her voice dripping with careful sincerity. I would never hurt him. Nathan exhaled. Liam, are you sure? That's a serious accusation. Liam's frustration boiled over. Of course I'm sure. I know what I heard. Vanessa sighed, standing up and crossing the room toward him. She knelt beside his chair, placing a gentle hand on his arm. Sweetie, I know this is hard. You and your dad have been through so much. Maybe the idea of him getting married again is scary for you. And that's okay. Liam pulled his arm away, glaring at her. That's not what this is about. But Nathan hesitated. Liam's heart sank. He wasn't taking this seriously. Vanessa gave Nathan a sad smile. I would never want Liam to feel like I'm replacing his mother. Maybe we've been moving too fast. I don't want him to think I'm here to take his dad away. I don't think that, Liam snapped. I think you're lying. Nathan sighed again, rubbing his temples. All right? Enough? Liam looked at him desperately. Dad, this conversation is getting out of control, Nathan interrupted, his voice weary. Liam, I know you don't like change. And I get it. But Vanessa isn't trying to hurt anyone. She's been nothing but patient with you. Liam couldn't believe what he was hearing. He felt like the room was spinning, like his father wasn't even seeing him anymore. You're not listening to me. I am, Nathan said gently. I just think you might be letting your emotions get the best of you. Liam's stomach twisted. His father wasn't taking him seriously. He wasn't even considering the possibility that Vanessa could be lying. Vanessa stood, brushing imaginary dust from her dress. Nathan, maybe we should revisit family counseling. I don't want Liam to feel unheard. Liam gaped at her. She was so good at this. She knew exactly what to say, how to manipulate the situation. She had completely turned it around, making it seem like Liam was the problem. Nathan sighed. That might not be a bad idea. Liam shoved his chair back abruptly, his appetite completely gone. You're making a mistake. He stormed off before his father could say another word. As he reached the stairs, he heard Vanessa murmur softly, he just needs time. Liam clenched his fists so tightly his nails dug into his palms. No. She was winning. She was playing the long game, making his father doubt him. But Liam knew what he had heard. He wasn't imagining it. He wasn't confused. And if his father wouldn't listen, then Liam would have to find another way. She wouldn't win. Not if he had anything to do with it. Liam's hands trembled as he shut the door to his room, locking it behind him. His father didn't believe him. Vanessa had twisted everything, making it seem like he was just an upset kid who couldn't handle change. He paced back and forth, his mind racing. He had never felt this helpless before. But he couldn't let it end like this. Taking a deep breath, he sat down at his desk, staring at the wall in front of him. He knew the truth. He had heard Vanessa's conversation with Mark. She was planning something dangerous. He had tried to warn his dad, but Nathan was too blinded by love to see it. If words wouldn't convince him, then Liam needed proof. And he would find it. He had no idea where to start. Vanessa wasn't stupid. She had covered her tracks well enough that his father trusted her completely. But no one could hide everything forever. There had to be some kind of evidence that would expose her for who she really was. His eyes flicked toward the hallway. The study. It was the one room in the house Vanessa always seemed protective over. Whenever she was alone in there, she kept the door slightly shut, as if she didn't want anyone seeing what she was doing. If there was any proof of her plan, that was the first place to look. But there was a problem. Vanessa was still downstairs with his father. If he tried to sneak in now, she'd catch him. He needed to be smart. For the next few hours, Liam waited. He listened to the sounds of the house, noting when his father's voice grew more distant. When he finally heard the familiar click of Nathan's car keys, he moved to the window and peeked through the blinds. His father was leaving for work. Now it was just Vanessa. He waited a little longer, straining his ears. At first, the house was quiet, but then he heard the soft click of her heels as she moved through the downstairs hallway. He held his breath, listening as she walked toward the back patio. A moment later, the glass door slid shut. She was outside. This was his chance. Liam stepped into the hallway, his heartbeat thudding in his ears. The study was only a few doors down. He crept toward it, every step careful and measured. When he reached the door, he turned the handle slowly, relieved to find it unlocked. Slipping inside, he carefully closed the door behind him. The room smelled like Vanessa's perfume, something floral and artificial. A large desk sat in the center, surrounded by bookshelves and neatly arranged files. Everything was perfectly organized, which only made Liam more nervous. Vanessa was careful. That meant he had to be, too. He moved toward the desk first, running his fingers along the surface. There were a few papers stacked neatly, but nothing suspicious. He opened the top drawer, finding pens, receipts, and other everyday items. The second drawer had nothing useful either. Then he opened the third drawer. His breath caught. Inside, buried beneath a few unmarked folders, was a black envelope. It looked out of place among the neatly arranged paperwork. His fingers trembled as he reached for it, carefully pulling it open. Inside were several documents. The first one was an insurance policy, just like he feared. His father's name was listed in bold letters, with Vanessa marked as the sole beneficiary. His heart pounded as he flipped through the papers. The payout was enormous, millions of dollars. His stomach twisted. She was planning to marry his father, then ensure he had an accident. Just like she had told Mark. Liam's hand shook as he reached for the next document. It was a receipt for a private investigator. His brows furrowed as he scanned the details. The investigator had been hired months ago, to look into his father's financial records. She had been planning this for a long time. Bile rose in Liam's throat. His fingers itched to grab everything and run straight to his father, but he forced himself to think. If he took the documents now, Vanessa would immediately know someone had been in the study. She would cover her tracks before his dad ever saw them. He needed more. Setting the papers back exactly as he found them, he grabbed his phone and carefully snapped a few pictures. His heart pounded so loudly he was afraid she might hear it from outside. Once he was sure he had everything documented, he placed the envelope back into the drawer and shut it quietly. He needed to get out. Just as he reached the door, a noise made him freeze. The sound of footsteps. His breath hitched. He turned his head slightly, listening. The footsteps weren't coming from the patio anymore. They were coming toward the study. Panic surged through him. He had no escape. If Vanessa walked in now, he was caught. His eyes darted around the room, searching for options. His only choice was to hide. He spotted a small gap between the large bookshelf and the wall, a tight squeeze, but it would have to do. He slipped into the narrow space just as the handle on the door turned. The door swung open, and Vanessa stepped inside. Liam pressed his back against the wall, forcing himself to stay completely still. For a moment, Vanessa didn't move. Then, slowly, she crossed the room. Liam could hear the faint rustle of papers, the sound of her shifting things around. His pulse pounded in his ears. Was she looking for something? Had she noticed that something was out of place? He could see her through the small gap between the books. She stood near the desk, scanning the documents. Then, to his horror, she reached for the same black envelope he had just touched. She flipped through the pages, her lips pressing into a thin line. Then, without warning, she stilled. She turned her head slightly, eyes narrowing. Liam's lungs burned from holding his breath. Had she sensed him? A long moment passed before she finally closed the drawer and exhaled sharply. "It's fine," she muttered to herself. "He doesn't suspect a thing." Liam barely dared to move. She stood there for another few seconds before finally turning and walking out of the room. The moment she shut the door behind her, Liam released a shaky breath, his entire body trembling. That had been too close. He stayed hidden for another minute, listening carefully to her footsteps retreating down the hall. When he was certain the coast was clear, he carefully slipped out from his hiding spot. His hand still shook as he gripped his phone. He had the evidence. He had proof. But would it be enough? His father was in love with Vanessa. Love made people blind. Nathan hadn't believed him before. Would he even listen now? Liam had to make him see the truth. And if his father still refused to listen, then Liam would have to stop the wedding himself. Liam sat on the edge of his bed, gripping his phone so tightly his knuckles turned white. The pictures of Vanessa's insurance documents were right there, clear, undeniable proof of her deception. His father couldn't ignore this, not when it was in black and white. But a sick feeling settled in his stomach. Nathan hadn't believed him before. What if he didn't believe him now? Liam had never felt so powerless in his own home. He had always been able to talk to his dad about anything. Ever since his mom passed away, they had relied on each other, a small but unshakable team. His father had always listened. But Vanessa had changed that. She had slithered into their lives, planting doubt where there had never been any before. She was winning. Liam clenched his jaw. Not for long. His father wouldn't be home for a few more hours, so all Liam could do was wait. The idea of spending that time under the same roof as Vanessa made his skin crawl, but if he locked himself in his room all day, she would suspect something. He had to act normal. Steeling himself, he took a deep breath, stuffed his phone into his pocket, and left his room. Downstairs, Vanessa sat on the couch, flipping through a magazine as if she had nothing to worry about. She glanced up when she saw him. "Oh," she said with a practiced smile. "You finally came out of your cave. I was beginning to think you'd barricaded yourself in there forever." Liam didn't respond. He moved toward the kitchen, forcing himself to act like everything was fine. He poured himself a glass of water, trying to ignore the way Vanessa watched him like a cat watching a mouse. "You know," she continued, closing the magazine, "I really do hope we can get along, Liam. I know this hasn't been easy for you." Liam tightened his grip on the glass. She was so good at this. So good at pretending. He turned to face her. "Are you going to tell my dad what you said last night?" Vanessa blinked, then tilted her head. "And what exactly did I say?" Liam's stomach twisted. She was playing dumb. "I heard you," he said, his voice low but firm. "I heard you talking to Mark. I saw the insurance papers. I know what you're doing." For a brief moment, something flickered in her expression. It wasn't fear, or even anger. It was calculation. And then, just as quickly, it was gone. She let out a small, amused sigh. "Liam, you're a smart kid. And smart kids let their imaginations run wild sometimes. I'm not imagining this." She folded her hands neatly in her lap. "You're convinced that I'm some kind of villain, that I have some master plan to, what? Hurt your father? Take his money? Do you hear how ridiculous that sounds?" Liam's heart pounded. "I have proof." She stilled. For the first time, a crack in her mask. Then she laughed. A soft, condescending sound that made Liam's stomach turn. "Oh, sweetheart," she said, shaking her head. "And what exactly do you think you have?" Liam's mouth was dry. "Pictures. Of the insurance documents. Of you and Mark. My dad will see them. He'll know the truth." Vanessa stood slowly, smoothing out her dress as she did. "You really think he's going to believe you?" she asked, her tone quiet but sharp. Liam's stomach dropped. "Do you know what I see?" Vanessa continued, taking a slow step toward him. "I see a sad, scared little boy who doesn't want his dad to move on. A boy who lost his mother and doesn't want anyone else taking her place. A boy who, let's be honest, has been acting out quite a bit lately." Liam took a step back. "That's not true, isn't it?" She arched an eyebrow. "What do you think will happen when you show him those pictures?" "He'll listen for a moment, sure. Maybe he'll even hesitate. But then, I'll sit him down. I'll remind him how hard this has been on you. How much you've struggled. How you've been acting out in school. How you've been having nightmares. How you've been unwell." Liam's hands curled into fists. "I don't act out in school." "Oh, but your teachers have mentioned how distracted you've been, haven't they? How your grades have dropped just a little. It's easy to spin a story, Liam. And I'm very, very good at it." His breath hitched. She wasn't just trying to convince his father she was innocent. She was trying to convince him that Liam was the problem. "You're lying," he spat. She smiled. "Am I? Who do you think he'll believe? His son, who's been emotional and angry for months? Or the woman who's stood by him, who's been patient, who's only ever tried to help?" Liam could barely breathe. She was so sure of herself. Because she had already won. Before he could respond, the sound of a car pulling into the driveway made them both freeze. Nathan was home. Vanessa's eyes flicked toward the front door. Then, smoothly, she shifted her expression into one of concern. "Now," she whispered, stepping closer, lowering her voice just enough that only he could hear. "You have a choice." Liam swallowed. "You can run to your dad right now, show him those pictures, and try to convince him I'm some kind of monster," she said, tilting her head. And maybe, just maybe, he'll hesitate. Maybe he'll believe you for a moment." Her voice dropped even lower. "But when I convince him otherwise, and I will, it'll be over for you." Liam's pulse roared in his ears. "I'll tell him you need help," she continued. "That you need therapy. That you've been having dangerous thoughts. That I'm worried for your well-being." She let out a soft sigh. "And what happens then? Maybe he pulls you from school. Maybe he sends you somewhere for treatment. Or maybe, worst of all, he just stops trusting you." His blood ran cold. She was trapping him. His father's footsteps echoed on the porch. A second later, the front door opened. "Hey," Nathan called, dropping his keys onto the table. "Everything okay?" Liam couldn't move. Vanessa turned to his father with a small, sad smile. "Liam and I were just talking," she said gently. "I think he's still struggling with everything, Nathan. Maybe we should find someone for him to talk to. A professional." Nathan's face filled with concern. Liam swallowed hard. He had the proof. He could pull out his phone right now and show his father everything. But what if Vanessa was right? What if Nathan believed her? What if she convinced him that Liam was just a confused, scared kid? What if this was the moment he lost his father forever? His hands shook. His throat felt tight. And then, for the first time in his life, Liam stayed silent. Liam lay awake in bed, staring at the ceiling, his mind racing with thoughts that refused to quiet. His father didn't believe him. Vanessa had made sure of that. Every time he had tried to tell the truth, she had twisted it, turned it against him, making it seem like he was just an emotional kid who couldn't handle change. And now, with the wedding just days away, time was running out. If he didn't do something soon, his father would walk straight into a trap. He sat up slowly, rubbing his tired eyes. He had spent the entire night trying to come up with a plan, some way to make his father see the truth. He had proof, the photos of the insurance documents, the receipt for the private investigator, the messages Vanessa had exchanged with Mark. But none of it mattered if Nathan refused to look at it. Vanessa had won their father-son battle for trust. Which meant Liam needed another way. He pulled out his phone and scrolled through the pictures again, his fingers hovering over the send button. He could try emailing them to his father, maybe even printing them out and leaving them somewhere obvious. But Vanessa was too smart. She would find a way to spin it. He needed something bigger. Something unstoppable. A plan began forming in his mind. It was risky, dangerous even, but he had no choice. He had to act. He had to make sure everyone saw Vanessa for who she truly was. And the best way to do that? Crash the wedding. The idea alone made his stomach churn, but what other choice did he have? No one would listen to him in private, but if he exposed her in front of a room full of people, she wouldn't be able to talk her way out of it. He had to time it right. He had to wait until the moment of no return. And he knew exactly when that would be. The wedding vows. When the officiant said, "Speak now or forever hold your peace," Liam would stand up and tell the truth. The thought filled him with both excitement and fear. He had never done anything like this before. But this wasn't just some wedding prank. His father's life was on the line. He got up, grabbed his phone, and stuffed it into his pocket. He had a few days to prepare, to make sure everything was in place. He would print out the photos, bring them with him, and when the time came, he would make sure everyone saw them. Vanessa couldn't silence him forever. Liam would be heard. The morning of the wedding arrived faster than Liam expected. The house was buzzing with activity. His father was getting ready in his bedroom, completely oblivious to the storm about to hit. Guests had started arriving, filling the downstairs with laughter and conversation. And then there was Vanessa. Dressed in an elegant white gown, she moved through the house like a queen, her every step confident, her smile perfectly in place. She had won. She had everything she wanted. Or so she thought. Liam swallowed hard as he grabbed his backpack, making sure the printed evidence was safely inside. His hands were clammy, his heart racing. There was no turning back now. At exactly noon, they arrived at the church. It was beautiful, high ceilings, stained glass windows, rows of guests chatting happily as they waited for the ceremony to begin. Liam took his seat in one of the back rows, feeling his stomach twist into knots. Everything had to go perfectly. He gripped the envelope in his lap, feeling the weight of what was inside. He glanced toward the front of the church, where Nathan stood at the altar, adjusting his tie. His father looked so happy, so sure of the future he was about to walk into. If only he knew. The music started. Everyone rose from their seats as Vanessa walked down the aisle, her veil flowing behind her. She was radiant, beaming at Nathan like she truly loved him. Liam clenched his fists, fighting the urge to scream. Not yet. The officiant began the ceremony, his voice calm and steady as he spoke of love and commitment. Liam barely heard a word. His heartbeat thundered in his ears, his palms slick with sweat. And then, the moment came. If anyone has any reason why these two should not be joined in holy matrimony, speak now or forever hold your peace. A thick silence fell over the church. Liam's chest tightened. Now. He took a deep breath, stood up, and spoke. Wait. Gasps filled the room. Heads turned. Murmurs spread like wildfire. Nathan's eyes widened as he looked toward his son. Liam. Liam's voice shook, but he didn't stop. Dad, you can't marry her. The silence was deafening. Vanessa turned slowly, her expression unreadable. But Liam saw it, the panic just beneath the surface. Sweetheart, she said gently, I know this is overwhelming, but... No. Liam's voice rose, firm and unyielding. She's lying to you. Whispers rippled through the crowd. Nathan stepped forward, his brow furrowed. Liam, what are you talking about? Liam's hands trembled as he reached into his bag, pulling out the envelope. I have proof, he said, his voice steady despite the fear curling in his chest. Vanessa, she doesn't love you. She's using you. Vanessa froze. Liam took a deep breath. I heard her talking to Mark. I saw the insurance papers. She's planning something bad, Dad. She's planning to hurt you. More gasps. Nathan's face paled. Vanessa laughed. A short, nervous sound. Oh, Liam, honey. Liam didn't let her finish. He held up the pictures. The guests leaned forward. Nathan stepped closer, his eyes narrowing. What is this? The truth, Liam said. Look at them, Dad. Nathan hesitated, then took the papers. He scanned the documents, his expression shifting from confusion to horror. His hands trembled as he stared at the insurance forms, the payout numbers, the receipt for a private investigator. The color drained from his face. Vanessa, his voice cracked. What is this? For a moment, Vanessa didn't move. Then, her mask shattered. She turned on Liam, her eyes blazing with fury. You little brat, she hissed. You've ruined everything. A collective gasp filled the church. Nathan's head snapped up. The weight of her words sank in. Who are you? He whispered, stepping away from her. Vanessa panicked. She bolted. A blur of white lace, shoving past guests, sprinting down the aisle. Chaos erupted. Liam watched it all unfold. His breath came in shaky bursts, his hands still gripping the empty envelope. His plan had worked. His father finally saw the truth. But the nightmare wasn't over yet. Because Vanessa was getting away. And Liam knew. She wouldn't go down without a fight. Liam's heart pounded as Vanessa bolted down the aisle, her wedding dress a blur of white against the sea of stunned guests. The church was filled with shocked murmurs, gasps, and hushed whispers. Some people stood frozen in place, while others turned to each other in confusion. Nathan stood at the altar, still gripping the incriminating documents, his face pale as if the world had just crumbled beneath his feet. Liam's pulse roared in his ears. He had done it. He had exposed her. But she was running. Somebody stop her? A voice called from the crowd. Liam turned just in time to see Vanessa shove past an older woman near the exit, nearly knocking her over. The woman stumbled, catching herself on a pew, as Vanessa reached the door and threw it open. Cold air rushed into the church as sunlight streamed through the doorway. Vanessa took off down the steps. Liam's chest tightened. She couldn't get away. He didn't think, he just moved. Racing down the aisle, Liam sprinted toward the door, ignoring the voices shouting behind him. He hit the steps at full speed, his shoes pounding against the stone. Ahead of him, Vanessa's dress flared out as she ran toward the parking lot. She was fast. But Liam had one advantage. He knew this place. His father had picked this church because it was peaceful, tucked away on a quiet road surrounded by trees. There was only one way in and out of the parking lot. If she didn't have a car waiting, she was trapped. Liam skidded to a stop near the bottom of the steps, scanning the area. His lungs burned, his breath coming in short gasps. And then he saw him. A man near the far end of the lot. Tall. Dressed in dark clothes. Waiting. Liam's blood ran cold. Mark. Everything happened in an instant. Vanessa saw him, too. She veered toward him. The man's head snapped up, his eyes widening as he spotted her. Then he turned and started walking away. "No," Vanessa hissed, picking up speed. "Mark, wait." But he didn't wait. He kept walking. Vanessa's frantic footsteps echoed across the pavement. "Don't you dare leave me here." Mark ignored her. Liam's chest tightened as he watched the scene unfold. She was losing everything. Her plan. Her escape. Even the man she had risked it all for. For the first time, she looked desperate. But she wasn't giving up. Vanessa turned sharply, running toward a nearby car, a silver sedan. She yanked the door handle, but it was locked. Come on," she muttered, fumbling through the folds of her dress, searching for her keys. Liam's mind raced. He had seconds before she drove away. And then, suddenly, strong hands grabbed her arms. Vanessa shrieked, struggling against the grip. "Let me go." Liam whipped around. His father. Nathan had caught up. His face was ashen, his expression a mixture of fury and disbelief. "Vanessa," he breathed. "What have you done?" She twisted in his grip, trying to break free. "Nathan, please. I can explain." "Explain?" Nathan's voice cracked. "Explain what?" "That you plan to marry me and then, what? Have me killed." The guests had spilled out onto the steps, watching in stunned silence. Vanessa shook her head wildly. No, you don't understand. Liam, he. Nathan cut her off, his voice low, trembling. "Don't you dare blame my son." Vanessa's mouth snapped shut. Liam's throat tightened. His father believed him. For the first time, Nathan looked at Liam, not with doubt. Not with hesitation. But with realization. "You were telling the truth," Nathan murmured, his grip on Vanessa tightening. Liam swallowed the lump in his throat and nodded. Nathan's expression darkened. "I should have listened to you." Vanessa panicked. "This is a mistake," she gasped. "Nathan, I love you, I was never going to hurt you." Liam could see the moment his father broke. Nathan's face twisted with betrayal, his eyes filled with something unreadable, something that made Vanessa finally fall silent. Then, his voice came, quiet but unshakable. "I never want to see you again." Vanessa stilled. A heartbeat passed. Then she lunged. Nathan stumbled as she twisted free, shoving him back. Liam's breath caught as Vanessa turned to run again, but this time, she didn't make it far. A pair of uniformed officers blocked her path. Vanessa froze, her breath ragged. One of the officers, a woman with dark hair pulled into a bun, stepped forward. "Vanessa Moore?" Vanessa didn't answer. "We need you to come with us." Her hands curled into fists. "On what grounds?" The officer pulled out a folded document. "Fraud. Conspiracy to commit insurance fraud. And we're just getting started." Vanessa paled. Liam watched, his breath coming in short, shaky bursts, as the officers took her by the arms. She fought. She struggled. But she was done. They guided her toward the patrol car, placing her inside. For the first time since this nightmare began, Liam could breathe. The church was silent as everyone watched her go. Nathan ran a hand down his face, exhaling shakily. Then he turned to Liam, kneeling so they were eye level. His voice was raw. "I'm so sorry, buddy." Liam swallowed hard, his throat thick with emotion. "I just didn't want to lose you." Nathan pulled him into a tight embrace. "You saved my life," he whispered. Liam closed his eyes, clinging to his father. It was over. Vanessa was gone. And for the first time in a long time, Liam felt safe. But as the officers drove away, taking Vanessa with them, a single thought unsettled him. Mark. He had walked away. Vanessa was caught. But Mark? He was still out there. Watching. Waiting. And somehow, Liam knew. This wasn't quite over. Not yet. The police car disappeared down the road, its flashing lights fading into the distance. The churchyard remained frozen in silence, the weight of what had just happened pressing down on everyone. The wedding guests, once eager to celebrate, stood in stunned disbelief, whispering among themselves. Nathan still knelt in front of Liam, gripping his son's arms as if afraid to let go. His breath was uneven, his face pale. Liam could see the raw emotions flickering in his father's eyes, shock, guilt, and something even deeper. Regret. Nathan exhaled shakily. "I should have believed you." Liam swallowed, his chest tight. He had waited so long for those words, but now that they were finally here, he didn't feel victorious. He just felt tired. His father shook his head in disbelief. I let her get too close. I let her fool me. He clenched his jaw. And I almost lost you because of it? Liam wanted to tell him that it wasn't his fault. That Vanessa had been manipulative, that she had known exactly how to play him. But part of him was still hurt. You didn't listen, Liam said quietly. Even when I tried to tell you. Nathan's face crumbled. I know, he whispered. And that's the part that hurts the most? Liam glanced toward the church entrance, where guests still lingered, too stunned to leave. He spotted Pastor Owen speaking to a small group of people, shaking his head as if trying to process everything. Nearby, a few of Nathan's close friends, people who had supported his relationship with Vanessa, stood with grim expressions. They had all been fooled. But the worst part? Vanessa had almost gotten away with it. Liam clenched his fists. She was gone now. Arrested. Exposed. But Mark wasn't. His mind flashed back to the moment in the parking lot, to the way Mark had seen Vanessa running toward him, and walked away. He had abandoned her. Liam had assumed it was fear. That Mark had realized the plan had fallen apart and wanted no part in the fallout. But the more he thought about it, the more something felt wrong. Mark hadn't looked scared. He had looked prepared. Like he had known this would happen. Liam's stomach twisted. Nathan stood up, placing a hand on Liam's shoulder. Come on, buddy. Let's get out of here. Liam nodded, but his mind was still stuck on Mark. As they made their way to the car, guests continued murmuring. Some looked at Nathan with sympathy. Others whispered behind their hands. Liam caught snippets of conversation. Can you believe it? She almost got away with it. I never liked her anyway. But one thing was clear, everyone knew the truth now. As they reached the car, Nathan hesitated. He turned to Liam. Do you want to go home? Liam did. More than anything. But there was something he needed to say first. We need to tell the police about Mark. Nathan frowned. Mark. Liam nodded. He was here. Waiting for her. But when she ran to him, he just left. Nathan's expression darkened. You saw him? Yes, Liam said. And I don't think he was surprised when she got caught. I think he expected it. Nathan let out a slow breath, rubbing his temples. That doesn't make sense. If he was part of the plan, why wouldn't he try to help her escape? Liam shook his head. I don't know. But something about it felt wrong. Nathan was silent for a long moment. Then he pulled out his phone. I'll call Detective Harris, he said. He'll want to know. Liam exhaled, feeling a small sense of relief. But it wasn't enough. Because something told him that Mark wasn't done. Later that evening, the house felt too quiet. Nathan had barely spoken since they got home. He had spent most of the afternoon on the phone, first with the police, then with his lawyer, then with a few close friends. Liam could tell he was exhausted. He sat on the couch, staring blankly at the TV. He hadn't even bothered changing out of his suit. Liam sat beside him, picking at the frayed edge of his hoodie sleeve. So, what happens now? He asked. Nathan let out a slow breath. I don't know. Liam frowned. What do you mean? Nathan rubbed his face, his voice thick with exhaustion. The police said Vanessa's case is open and ongoing. There's enough evidence to charge her with fraud and conspiracy, but they're still looking into her background. Turns out, she's changed her name twice before. Liam's stomach twisted. She's done this before. Nathan nodded grimly. They think so. She's a professional con artist. And if they can prove she's pulled this same scheme on other people, her sentence will be even worse. Liam swallowed. He should have felt relieved. Vanessa was in custody. The truth was out. But all he could think about was Mark. What about him? Liam asked. Nathan sighed. Detective Harris is looking into it, but they don't have much on him yet. No real name. No clear record. Just a burner phone and a few old addresses. Liam's chest tightened. So, he's just gone? For now. Liam hated that answer. He shifted uncomfortably, glancing at the window. The sun had started to set, casting long shadows across the yard. He had never been afraid in his own home before. But tonight, the world felt different. More dangerous. Nathan must have sensed his unease. He reached over, squeezing Liam's shoulder. I'm not going to let anything happen to you, he said. I promise. Liam nodded. He wanted to believe him. But deep down, he knew, this wasn't over. Hours later, long after Nathan had gone to bed, Liam lay awake, staring at the ceiling. His mind was restless, his body buzzing with unease. He couldn't stop thinking about Mark. He tried to push the thoughts away, to convince himself that it didn't matter. Vanessa was arrested. The police were investigating. His father was finally safe. But something still felt wrong. He reached for his phone and opened his texts. He hesitated. Then, finally, he typed, "Do you think she planned to get caught?" He stared at the message for a long time before deleting it. It was a stupid thought. There was no way Vanessa had wanted to get caught. She had panicked when he exposed her. She had run. And yet, why had Mark walked away so easily? Why hadn't he even tried to help her? Liam let out a slow breath, setting his phone down. He was probably overthinking it. The case was in the hands of the police now. He needed to let it go. But as he finally drifted off to sleep, one final thought lingered in his mind. What if Vanessa wasn't the real mastermind after all? What if she had been just another pawn? And what if someone worse was still out there? Liam woke with a start, his breath hitching as his heart pounded against his ribs. His room was dark, the faint glow of his alarm clock casting eerie shadows across the walls. For a moment, he was disoriented, unsure what had startled him awake. Then he remembered, Vanessa was in jail, but Mark was still out there. He rubbed his eyes and sat up, listening carefully. The house was silent. His father was asleep down the hall, and outside, the neighborhood was quiet. But something felt off. He reached for his phone and checked the time. 2:47 a.m. His stomach twisted. It had been almost 12 hours since Vanessa's arrest. 12 hours since Mark had walked away without looking back. Liam couldn't shake the feeling that something wasn't right. His fingers hovered over his phone screen. He thought about texting his dad, but Nathan had barely slept in days. He didn't want to wake him unless he was sure something was wrong. Liam took a slow breath, got out of bed, and padded toward his window. He pulled back the curtain slightly, peering outside. The street was empty. The parked cars were still. The dim glow of streetlights illuminated the quiet neighborhood. There was nothing unusual. So why did he feel like someone was watching? Liam sighed, running a hand through his hair. Maybe he was just paranoid. After everything that had happened, his brain was probably in overdrive, looking for threats where there were none. Still, he double-checked that his window was locked before climbing back into bed. But even as he closed his eyes, he couldn't shake the uneasy feeling gnawing at his gut. Nathan's voice pulled him from sleep. Liam blinked, disoriented as sunlight streamed through his window. His father stood in the doorway, his phone in one hand, his face pale. "Dad." Liam sat up, instantly alert. "What's wrong?" Nathan swallowed hard, gripping the phone tighter. "Vanessa escaped." Liam's stomach dropped. "What?" His voice came out hoarse. Nathan exhaled sharply. "She was being transported to a secure facility last night. The officers stopped at a rest area, and somehow, she slipped away." Liam's mind raced. "What do you mean, slipped away? How does someone just escape?" "They don't know yet," Nathan admitted. "They're looking into it, but the working theory is that someone helped her." Liam's throat went dry. "Mark." His heart pounded as he swung his legs over the edge of the bed. "Where is she now?" Nathan shook his head. "They don't know. The police are searching, but she's gone." Liam felt sick. She was out there. She knew where they lived. And worst of all, they had no idea what she would do next. An hour later, 2 police officers sat in the Carter living room, their notepads open as they questioned Nathan. Liam sat on the couch, barely listening, his mind stuck on one horrifying thought. Vanessa had nothing to lose now. Before, she had been playing a long game, carefully manipulating her way into their lives. She had needed Nathan to trust her, needed the marriage to go through before her plan could work. But now? She had already been exposed. She had already been caught. And desperate people did desperate things. "We're doing everything we can to locate her," Officer Reynolds assured them. "We've issued an immediate BOLO, be on the lookout, and alerted authorities in neighboring states. But in the meantime, we strongly suggest you and your son stay somewhere else for a few days." Nathan's brow furrowed. "You think she's coming here?" "It's a possibility," Reynolds admitted. "And until we know for sure, we don't want to take any risks." Liam's stomach twisted. "She won't stop," he murmured. The officers turned to him. "She wanted my dad's money," Liam continued, voice quiet but firm. But now? She probably wants revenge. Nathan's expression hardened. Reynolds nodded. Which is why we need you to be careful. If she tries to contact you in any way, calls, texts, emails, you need to let us know immediately. Nathan nodded. Absolutely. The officers stood, gathering their things. We'll keep a patrol car in the area, Reynolds added. But if anything seems off, don't wait, call us right away. As soon as the door closed behind them, Nathan turned to Liam. Go pack a bag? Liam hesitated. Where are we going? To a hotel, Nathan said. Somewhere safe. Liam's chest tightened, but he nodded. He didn't like running. He wanted to fight back. But deep down, he knew this wasn't a fight they could win alone. By the time the sun had set, Liam and his father were in a hotel room across town. It wasn't anything fancy, just 2 beds, a small TV, and a desk near the window. But it was safe. Nathan checked the locks twice before finally sitting on the edge of his bed, rubbing his temples. This is insane, he muttered. Liam sat cross-legged on his bed, gripping his phone. She won't just disappear. Nathan exhaled. I know. Liam hesitated before voicing the thought that had been eating at him all day. What if Mark helped her escape? Nathan's jaw tightened. He's still out there, Liam continued. And he left her behind before, but what if that was just part of the plan? What if he's helping her now? Nathan was silent for a long moment. Then, finally, he pulled out his phone and scrolled through his contacts. I'm calling Detective Harris. Liam exhaled in relief. Finally. Nathan pressed the phone to his ear, his expression dark. Harris, it's Nathan. I need to know, how likely is it that Mark is involved in Vanessa's escape? Liam watched his father's face carefully, trying to read Harris's response from the other side of the conversation. Nathan's expression hardened. Yeah, that's what I thought. Liam leaned forward. What did he say? Nathan hung up, exhaling sharply. They're already investigating Mark. He's gone completely off the grid. No known addresses, no credit card activity, nothing. Liam swallowed. Which means? Nathan met his son's eyes. It means he's running, too. Liam's stomach twisted. Vanessa was gone. Mark was gone. And the people who had tried to destroy their lives? Were still out there. Watching. Waiting. For what? Liam had no idea. But he was going to find out. And this time? He wouldn't let them get away. The hotel room felt suffocating. Liam sat on the bed, his back pressed against the headboard, his phone resting in his lap. The TV was on, muted, casting flickering images across the dimly lit room. Nathan sat at the small desk near the window, staring at his own phone with a look of exhaustion. It had been almost 24 hours since Vanessa's escape, and there was still no sign of her. The police had promised they were searching, but Liam knew better. Vanessa was smart. She had planned for this. The only thing keeping him from spiraling into full-blown panic was the knowledge that she wasn't alone. Mark was still out there. And if Liam had learned anything over the past few days, it was that Mark was always one step ahead. Nathan let out a slow breath, rubbing his temples. I hate this. Liam glanced up. I know. I hate running, his father muttered, shaking his head. This is our home. And now we're hiding in some hotel while Vanessa and Mark are, what? Plotting their next move. Liam clenched his jaw. That's exactly what they're doing. Nathan's eyes darkened. Then we need to figure out what their next move is before they make it. Liam nodded slowly. That was the only way to end this. They couldn't just wait. They had to get ahead of them. Nathan picked up his phone again. Detective Harris is supposed to call me with an update. But we can't just rely on the police. We need to be ready for anything. Liam swallowed hard. What do we do? Nathan hesitated, then said, we start looking into Mark. Really looking? Liam sat up straighter. Like, digging into his past. Exactly. Nathan's expression was grim. If we can figure out who he really is, maybe we can predict where he'll go next. Liam nodded. It made sense. Mark was a ghost. The police had already said they couldn't track him. That meant he had done this before. And if he had done this before, there had to be a pattern. Liam grabbed his laptop from his backpack and opened it. His fingers hovered over the keyboard. Where do we start? Nathan exhaled. We look for any connection between him and Vanessa. Liam started typing. We already know they worked together. They had a plan. But what if this isn't the first time? Nathan leaned forward. Check for past fraud cases, ones where the suspect disappeared before being caught. Liam nodded, his eyes scanning the screen as he searched. Fraud. Insurance scams. Marriage cons. At first, nothing stood out. Then, Liam froze. His fingers hovered over the trackpad. Dad, he breathed. I think I found something. Nathan was at his side in an instant. What is it? Liam's heart pounded as he clicked on a news article from 6 years ago. It was about a wealthy businessman in another state, one who had fallen for a woman who had promised him the world. But she wasn't who she claimed to be. And when he found out the truth, he died in a car accident. Nathan's face tightened. Do they mention the woman's name? Liam scrolled down. The victim's family had pushed for an investigation, but there was never enough evidence to prove foul play. And the woman? She vanished. But Liam's eyes landed on one chilling detail. The woman had been last seen with an unknown man. Nathan read over Liam's shoulder, his face paling. There's a description of him. Liam's chest tightened. He read the description carefully. Tall. Dark hair. Always wearing sunglasses. Mark. Nathan exhaled sharply. That's him. Liam's stomach twisted. Dad, this wasn't their first time. Nathan clenched his jaw. It won't be their last either. Liam's heart pounded. He scrolled through the article again, searching for any connection, anything that could tell them where Mark and Vanessa might be hiding now. Then, he saw it. A location. The last place the woman had stayed before she disappeared. A motel outside of Phoenix, Arizona. Nathan read the words at the same time Liam did. His expression turned cold. They might be hiding somewhere like that now. Liam's pulse raced. Should we tell the police? Nathan hesitated, then nodded. Yes. But I'm not waiting around. We need to keep digging. Liam agreed. The police were looking for Vanessa, but they weren't thinking like her. But Liam was. He knew how she operated now. She was careful. Calculated. But she was also desperate. And desperate people made mistakes. Liam clicked on another search tab and typed, known hideouts for wanted criminals. It was risky. But he didn't care. He was done hiding. An hour later, Liam and Nathan sat in silence as they stared at the screen. They had found 3 motels that matched the same description as the one from the article, places known for housing fugitives. 3 motels. 3 possible locations. Nathan took a deep breath. We need to get these to Harris. Liam nodded, but he couldn't shake the feeling that time was running out. Somewhere out there, Vanessa and Mark were planning their next move. And if they didn't act fast, they were going to lose them again. Liam sat in the dimly lit hotel room, his mind racing. His laptop screen cast a faint glow on his face, but the words on the page blurred together. His father had sent the possible motel locations to Detective Harris, but there was still no update. The longer they waited, the more restless Liam became. Vanessa was out there. Mark was out there. And the worst part? They were waiting for something. Nathan paced near the window, phone in hand, his jaw tight. They should have found something by now, he muttered. Liam swallowed. What if we're missing something? Nathan stopped pacing and turned to face him. Like what? Liam shook his head. He wasn't sure. But something about this felt wrong. Vanessa had been arrested. The police had her. And then, out of nowhere, she escaped? It was too easy. It wasn't just Mark helping her disappear. Someone else had to be involved. Liam rubbed his temples. What if they have more people? Nathan's expression darkened. You think they're part of something bigger? Liam exhaled. I don't know. But I don't think this was just about you. Nathan was silent for a moment, considering the words. Then, suddenly, his phone buzzed. Liam sat up straight as his father answered. Harris? Any news? A pause. Nathan's face tightened. What? He asked sharply. Liam's stomach twisted. He could hear Harris's muffled voice on the other end, but he couldn't make out the words. Then Nathan froze. His grip on the phone tightened. His face went pale. When? Nathan demanded. Another long pause. Nathan closed his eyes and exhaled. All right. Thanks. He hung up. Liam's heart pounded. Dad. What is it? Nathan hesitated. Then, finally, he met Liam's eyes. They found Mark. Liam sat up straighter. Where? Nathan clenched his jaw. Dead? The word hung in the air, heavy and sharp. Liam felt like the room had just shrunk around him. Dead? he repeated, barely able to process it. Nathan nodded slowly. They found his body this morning. Gunshot wound. Execution style. Liam's blood ran cold. This wasn't a random murder. Someone had gotten rid of him. Liam's pulse pounded. Dad? Vanessa didn't do this. Nathan exhaled sharply. I know. She was on the run. She wouldn't have killed Mark, not when he was her only real ally. Which meant? Someone else was cleaning up the mess. Liam's hands clenched into fists. This isn't over. Nathan sat on the edge of the bed, rubbing his face. No. It's not. Liam's chest felt tight. If Mark was dead, that meant someone else was pulling the strings. And that someone? Was still out there. Nathan's phone buzzed again. He picked it up, glancing at the screen. It's Harris again. Liam swallowed hard as Nathan answered. A short conversation followed, low voices, tense pauses. Then Nathan hung up and turned to Liam. They found a car near Mark's body, he said. It was registered under a fake name, but it was rented a few days ago. Harris ran the ID through their system, and guess what? Liam's stomach twisted. It came from Vanessa? Nathan shook his head. It came from someone else. Liam's heart skipped a beat. Who? Nathan hesitated. Then, slowly, he said the name. A name that made Liam's breath catch in his throat. Logan Pierce. Liam frowned. Who the heck is Logan Pierce? Nathan's expression darkened. That's what we need to find out. Liam turned back to his laptop, fingers flying over the keyboard as he typed the name into the search bar. Logan Pierce. Nothing. Liam tried again. Logan Pierce fraud. Logan Pierce crime. Still nothing. His frustration built. There's nothing on him. Nathan sat beside him, jaw tight. Harris said it's a fake identity. Whoever this guy is, he doesn't want to be found. Liam's mind raced. Mark was dead. Vanessa was missing. And now there was another person involved? He took a shaky breath. What if Logan was the real mastermind all along? Nathan exhaled sharply. It makes sense. Mark was always lurking in the shadows. Vanessa was the face of the operation, but Mark? He was the one pulling strings behind the scenes. But what if there was someone above them? Liam pressed. Someone bigger. Someone even Mark answered to. Nathan hesitated. Then, finally, he nodded. This isn't just about us anymore, Nathan said. Liam swallowed. No. It's not. And that realization sent a chill down his spine. Because if Vanessa and Mark were just small players in a bigger game, then whoever Logan Pierce was, he was dangerous. More dangerous than they had ever imagined. And now? Liam and his father were right in the middle of it. The hotel room felt smaller than ever. Liam sat on the bed, his laptop open in front of him, fingers motionless over the keyboard. His father stood by the window, phone in hand, staring out at the city lights beyond the glass. Neither of them had spoken in the last 5 minutes. Because nothing they could say would change the truth. Vanessa was still missing. Mark was dead. And Logan Pierce was out there. Liam's mind reeled. Who was this guy? Mark had been dangerous, but he had also been predictable. He was a scammer, a fraud. He had helped Vanessa manipulate and steal. But Logan Pierce? He wasn't in any database. He wasn't a known criminal. He was a ghost. Nathan finally broke the silence. We need to leave. Liam's stomach twisted. Leave where? His father turned, his face etched with exhaustion. The police don't know where Vanessa is. They don't know who Logan really is. We're sitting here waiting for answers that aren't coming. I'm not going to let us be sitting ducks. Liam knew his father was right. He hated feeling helpless. But something about running again made his skin crawl. He clenched his fists. What if they find us anyway? Nathan's jaw tightened. Then we make sure we're ready for them. Liam swallowed. You mean, like a fight? Nathan sighed, rubbing his forehead. No, Liam. I mean we stay smart. We don't let them corner us. We don't let them control the situation. Liam wasn't sure if his father believed his own words. But he wanted to. Nathan picked up his phone again and scrolled through his contacts. I know a guy. Someone who specializes in finding people who don't want to be found. Liam raised an eyebrow. Like a bounty hunter. Nathan gave him a small smirk. Something like that? Liam exhaled. Okay. So we track down Logan before he tracks us down. Nathan nodded. Exactly. Liam's pulse quickened. This was it. They were taking control. For the first time since this nightmare started, they were going on the offensive. His father dialed a number. The call rang once. Twice. Then, a deep voice answered. Nathan. Been a long time. Nathan's expression hardened. Not long enough, Leon. Liam sat up straighter. Whoever this Leon guy was, he sounded dangerous. Nathan cut straight to the point. I need information. A name. Logan Pierce. There was silence on the other end. Then Leon let out a low chuckle. You're in deep trouble, aren't you? Nathan's grip on the phone tightened. Just tell me what you know. Another pause. Then Leon said, I'll call you back in an hour. Nathan frowned. Leon. The line went dead. Liam exchanged a look with his father. That's not suspicious at all. Nathan exhaled. Trust me. If anyone can find Logan, it's Leon. Liam didn't like this. He didn't like relying on some mysterious contact while Vanessa and Logan could be closing in on them. They were running out of time. And something told him they weren't the only ones making moves. An hour later, Nathan's phone rang. He answered immediately. Tell me you have something. Leon's voice was different this time. Not amused. Not cocky. Serious. I found him. Liam sat up straight. Nathan's fingers tightened around the phone. Where? Leon hesitated. Not over the phone. I'm sending you an address. Meet me there. Nathan exhaled sharply. This better not be a setup? Leon laughed dryly. If I wanted you dead, Nathan, you wouldn't have made it past last year. Liam blinked. What kind of history did his dad have? Nathan muttered something under his breath. Fine. I'll be there. The call ended. A moment later, Nathan's phone dinged with a message. Liam leaned over to read it. It was an address. Not in the city, but out in the middle of nowhere. Liam swallowed. Are we really going to meet some guy in a random place? What if it's a trap? Nathan stared at the address for a long moment. Then he tucked his phone into his pocket and grabbed the car keys. If Leon wanted to trap me, he'd have done it already. Liam wasn't convinced. But he grabbed his jacket and followed his father out the door. Because at this point, they didn't have a choice. The drive was long. The city lights faded behind them, replaced by empty roads and stretches of trees. Liam's nerves prickled with unease. Finally, Nathan pulled off onto a dirt road, leading them to an old warehouse. Liam's stomach twisted. This felt like the beginning of a bad movie. Nathan parked. Stay in the car? Liam bristled. No way. Nathan shot him a sharp look. Liam crossed his arms. I'm not a little kid. If this guy knows something about Logan, I need to hear it too. Nathan exhaled but didn't argue. Together, they stepped out of the car and walked toward the warehouse. A figure stood near the entrance, arms crossed. Tall. Broad shoulders. Leon? Nathan greeted him with a nod. You better have something good. Leon's eyes flickered to Liam. This your kid? Nathan nodded. Leon smirked. Smart one, huh? Liam straightened. Smarter than most. Leon chuckled. I like him. Nathan crossed his arms. The name? Logan Pierce. What do you know? Leon's smirk faded. His expression darkened. You don't want to be asking about Logan. Nathan's jaw clenched. I wouldn't be if he wasn't a threat to my family. Leon sighed, running a hand through his short hair. All right. You want the truth? Nathan nodded. Leon exhaled. Then, in a low voice, he said, Logan Pierce isn't a name. It's a cover. Liam frowned. What? Leon met his gaze. There is no Logan Pierce. Nathan's breath hitched. Then who the hell are we dealing with? Leon's expression was grim. A ghost. Someone who's been running cons and scams for years, all under different names. Liam's pulse spiked. So we don't know who he really is. Leon's lips pressed into a thin line. No. But I know what he's capable of. Nathan's fingers curled into fists. What does he want? Leon hesitated. Then, finally, he said. Control. Liam shivered. Nathan's voice was sharp. You're saying he's dangerous. Leon's expression turned ice cold. You don't survive this long in the con game without being dangerous. Liam's heart pounded. So, what do we do? Leon exhaled. You don't. You run. Because if Logan's still after you. His eyes hardened. He's already won? Liam's breath hitched at Leon's words. He's already won? The air in the warehouse felt thick, pressing down on him like a weight. His father stood tense beside him, arms crossed, eyes sharp with something between frustration and fear. Nathan's voice came out low and steady. "What do you mean, he's already won?" Leon sighed, rubbing a hand over his jaw. "I mean, Logan doesn't make mistakes. If he's still after you, it's because he wants you to run. And when people run, they slip up. They get desperate." He shook his head. "That's when he moves in." Liam's stomach twisted. "So, he wants us to keep running?" Leon nodded. "He's not some small-time scammer like Vanessa and Mark. He's the kind of guy who plays the long game. The moment you got involved in this mess, he started calculating every move. If he let Vanessa get caught, it wasn't because she screwed up, it was because she was expendable." Liam swallowed hard. "So, what? She was just a distraction." Leon's expression darkened. "Exactly." Nathan's jaw tightened. "If Vanessa was just a piece of the puzzle, what does he really want?" Leon hesitated. "With a guy like Logan? It could be money, control, power. Hell, sometimes it's just about making sure there are no loose ends." He met Nathan's gaze. "And you, my friend, are a loose end?" Silence stretched between them. Liam's pulse roared in his ears. "So what do we do?" Leon exhaled. "You stop running." Nathan narrowed his eyes. "You just said that's what he wants." "Exactly." Leon's smirk returned, sharp and calculating. "So don't give it to him." Liam frowned. "I don't get it." Leon turned to him. "Right now, he thinks you're scared. He thinks you're scrambling, trying to figure out what to do next. The second you stop running and take control of the situation, he loses the upper hand." Nathan exhaled. "So, what? We lay a trap?" Leon grinned. "Now you're thinking like a con artist." Liam's heart pounded. This was insane. But at the same time, it made sense. They had been reacting this whole time. Running. Hiding. Letting Vanessa and Mark dictate their every move. But if they stopped running? If they turned the game around? Maybe, just maybe, they could win. Nathan met Leon's gaze. "How do we make Logan come to us?" Leon's grin widened. "We make it look like we've already lost." Liam blinked. "What does that mean?" Leon leaned in slightly. "It means you act like he's already won. Like you're giving up. You make a move that's so stupid that he'll have no choice but to come out and finish the job." Nathan nodded slowly. "And once he does?" Leon's expression turned serious. "That's when you take him down." Liam's pulse spiked. This was it. They were finally fighting back. Nathan straightened. "All right. Let's do it." Leon smirked. "Good. Because Logan? He's already watching." Liam's blood ran cold. Nathan's expression hardened. "How do you know?" Leon's smirk didn't fade. "Because, Carter, you don't spend years in the shadows without knowing when someone's watching." Liam's hands curled into fists. "Then let's give him something to watch." Nathan exhaled, determination burning in his eyes. Time to end this. And with that, they left the warehouse, ready to finish the game. The plan was simple. Make Logan think they were broken. Make him come to them. Nathan and Liam left the warehouse, driving back toward the city with a newfound sense of purpose. For the first time in weeks, they weren't running. They were in control. Liam's heart pounded as he stared out the car window, watching the city lights blur past. "Do you think he's already watching?" Nathan gripped the wheel, his jaw tight. "If Logan is as smart as Leon says he is? Then yeah. He knows every move we make." Liam exhaled slowly. Then it was time to play their part. They returned to the hotel just after sunset. Nathan called Detective Harris, feeding him a false lead, telling him they were leaving town, that they couldn't stay in one place anymore. It was a lie, of course. But Logan needed to believe they were desperate. That they were slipping. The real plan? They weren't going anywhere. Leon had arranged for them to stay in an abandoned building on the outskirts of the city, a place with no cameras, no records, no connections to Nathan's past. It was the perfect place to set a trap. Liam could feel the tension crackling in the air as they settled in. Nathan paced the empty room, his phone gripped tightly in his hand. Liam sat near the window, his eyes locked on the dark streets below. They waited. Hours passed. The city outside remained silent. Then, a single text message appeared on Nathan's phone. Liam's stomach twisted. "Is it him?" Nathan's face darkened as he read the message. "You can't hide forever. This ends tonight." Liam's breath hitched. "He's coming?" Nathan nodded. Then let's make sure he doesn't leave. The trap was set. Nathan turned off the lights, plunging the room into darkness. They positioned themselves strategically, Liam near the back, hidden in the shadows, while Nathan stayed by the door, phone in hand, ready to alert the police the moment Logan showed himself. Every second felt like an eternity. Then, footsteps. Slow. Deliberate. Liam held his breath as a shadow moved past the window. Then, the door creaked open. A figure stepped inside. Tall. Confident. Controlled. Logan Pierce. Liam's stomach twisted into knots. This was the man who had been controlling everything. The one who had made Vanessa and Mark look like amateurs. Logan's voice was smooth, almost amused. You should have taken my advice, Carter. Running would have been easier. Nathan stood his ground. I'm done running. Logan chuckled. Shame. Now I have to clean up this mess myself. He took another step forward. Nathan tensed. You made a mistake, Logan. Logan raised an eyebrow. Oh. Nathan smirked. You came alone. For the first time, Logan's confident expression faltered. Then, sirens erupted in the distance. Liam's pulse surged. The police were here. Logan's eyes darkened. You set me up. Nathan's smirk didn't fade. You thought you had control. You never did. Logan's jaw clenched. He lunged forward, but Nathan was ready. He dodged, grabbing Logan's arm and twisting it behind his back. Logan struggled, but the sound of rushing footsteps filled the building as the police stormed in. Freeze. Liam exhaled in relief as officers surrounded Logan, guns raised. Logan's face remained unreadable, but there was something in his eyes, something cold. Calculated. You think this is over? Logan murmured as they cuffed him. You have no idea what you've started. Nathan glared. You're done, Logan. Logan chuckled, shaking his head. Am I? The officers pulled him away. The last thing Liam saw before Logan disappeared into the night was his smirk. Even in defeat, he looked like he was winning. Hours later, the chaos had settled. Logan was in custody. The police had started unraveling his network, piecing together his past crimes. Vanessa had been caught, too, picked up trying to flee the state. It was over. Liam sat beside his father outside the police station, staring up at the sky. Nathan let out a deep breath. It's done. Liam hesitated. Do you think he'll get out? Nathan was silent for a long time. Then he shook his head. Not this time. Liam nodded, but he couldn't shake the feeling that Logan's warning wasn't empty. Still, for now, they were safe. Nathan ruffled Liam's hair. You did good, kid. Liam smiled. We make a good team, huh? Nathan grinned. The best. And as they sat beneath the vast night sky, father and son knew that whatever the future held, they would face it together.